Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This month, we have something special that we're doing that we have not done before. And it is a special three-part series with my guest this month, Sean Dustin, who is the host of Nowhere to Go But Up. I decided to create a three-part series because during our interview together, his story was so moving and touching. I did not feel that I could edit it down to a 1 hour session. So I want everyone to know that this will just have natural breaks and the story will continue for 3 consecutive weeks. Thank you and enjoy. So now you're using other people's credit cards to buy stuff.
Yeah, well, I've taken this person's identity. I have a credit card in his name. So I went into identity theft. And so I'd figured out how to get cash advances of like $1,000 cash off of these cards. Right. And this was like the first time I think that this was happening. And so I was like, all right. So I went and used this person's identity to open up an account to get, I think T-Mobile maybe, and to get cell phones because I needed 5 cell phones to rotate through that I can change the prefixes of, right? To make it as I'm in the same city. It doesn't look as suspicious if I'm calling from the same sort of zip code, right? Or area code versus across the country. So I figured out how to do all this and I'm doing it on the way with a hotspot linked to the internet, setting up these things, right? All across where I went. I didn't count on running out of drugs. In Amarillo, Texas, we ran out of drugs. I couldn't find any more anywhere else. Everyone thought I looked like a cop. So I went to the strip clubs where you would normally go, went to the bars. Nobody would fuck with us. So I was forced to have to go to sleep for 3 days in Amarillo. We woke up, and mind you, this whole time that we're gone, the roommate that's still back there is calling us all like, are you coming back? When are you coming back? Are you coming back? Which is completely out of character. See, this person usually could care less what we're doing, right? So there's a red flag right there that I'm thinking, all right, we need to get home. All right, we don't have any drugs. I'm tired, and when you don't have meth, it's like you're coming down. The serotonin levels are all jacked up. Hallmark commercials make you cry. Everything just it screws with you. All right, I'm setting these things up on the way home because I don't want to waste the trip. Right. The calls keep coming. When are you going to be back? All right. We're in Arizona now. Flagstaff are coming up through. We're almost home, and I've got like 30,000 in cash on me. Right. This was a fruitful adventure, like one of the first ones that I've ever come through and done, where I did this whole thing. I figured it out. You know what I mean? What does this chick fucking want? God damn it. And so I'm like, dude, something is up. And so I stopped by my friend's house and I hide the cash. I didn't even tell him that I did do it. As far as I know, the trip was a bust. We didn't get nothing. I got some fireworks and some, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and some other things. We show up. There's the roommate, her friend, a dude. His name was Steve, and some other guy I had never even seen before. We're starting to do drugs because we haven't had any. So I'm like, first thing we do immediately is get high, and we're sitting there, and this guy pulls out a gun and puts it on his lap. And I'm like, hey man, put that away. I'm not even thinking nothing of it. I mean, this is my house, dude. Put that gun away, dude. You're in my house. Don't bring that out. And he's like, no, I really don't think you understand. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, get on the ground, both of you, right now. And so he's like, you're being taxed. And I'm like, being taxed? What does that even mean? Right. Well, apparently this guy was a Hell's Angel, and the Steve guy was a hang around and trying to make points because he wants to get into the club. Oh, I know this guy who's going to get a whole bunch of meth. They're going cross country and they're coming back. So he told this guy all this stuff, which is none of it was true, right? And so he splits us up, and he's questioning my chick. He's questioning me. The stories match up, and finally I'm just like, dude, I don't know what it is that you're trying to do, right? But it appears that you've been led astray by somebody. All right. I wasn't trying to, like, you know what I mean? I was just trying to do like a Jedi mind trick, right? Let me talk my way out of this because I'm really good at fucking talking. And I convince him that the smartest thing for you to do and I explained what I was doing, or what I know how to do. Not that I've done it, that this was sort of like a test run to see. Nothing really ever came of it, but I know that this works. So if you were smart, you would jump in on this and work with me instead of doing what you're doing, because you're not going to net anything. What are you going to get? Some fireworks, whatever. And so he bought it. All I really needed, just need to get the fuck out of here, right? Get out of the house. I just need to get you out of here. And so I said what I had to say to get him out. They took some fireworks. They took a 10-speed, or not a mountain bike that's worth a lot of money, and some other stuff. I didn't really even care. But what I did resign to do is now I'm going to kill this person. And so the next thing I do is I go to Big Five and I buy a shotgun in the identity that I've stolen. And they don't give it to you right away. You got to wait for like 3 days to come and pick it up. So within that 3 days, I'm now hooked up with some other chick that I want to screw, and she came across my path. And so I put her up in the hotel and go and screw her in between, you know what I mean, being at my house and doing this other stuff. The 3 days comes around. I don't have any cash. I've been paying cash for the room, so they haven't used, and it was in her name, so they were using her ID, right? And I was paying the cash for that room. I wasn't done with her, so I'm like, all right, well, I'll put it in my name now, since and I don't have any more cash, so I got to put it on a card. I give them my ID, but what I forget is,
and you give them the credit card.
yeah, the credit card and the ID, they work, right? There's nothing wrong with them. But the thing is when you do a weekly at a budget suites or something in Vegas, your information goes directly to Metro to make sure you're not a fugitive from somewhere else, right? Well, I'm not a black man, and the identity that I stole is a black guy. And I didn't put two and two together that when I came to get the room, it's already past checkout time. There should be rooms available. They go, oh, can you come back in 3 hours and your room will be ready? The gun I'm more concerned about, because it's the day I need to go pick it up, right? Because I'm going to kill this person. You understand? I'm fucking furious that this person did this to me, right? And I can't get past that. I can't get past that I got disrespected in my own home by this person. And not the guy that brought him here, the guy that did it. And so I'm blinded by that. And I go get the gun. I come back and I didn't pull it out. It's in the car. It's in the car, or in the thing. I go as I'm going to open the door, I'm surrounded. All of them pull out. And that's it.
Which
Well,
in all of this was the greatest gift you could have received in that moment. Otherwise, you would have done life.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's going to jail saved my life, and it saved somebody else's that day.
Yeah.
And I was so relieved when I was in that car. You have no clue. It was 115 out, which was 120 in the car. They left me in there the windows were cracked, but they didn't have it on, right? I'm literally asleep. Like I can finally rest. I fall asleep in the back of the car. But lo and behold, who comes and knocks on the door to say, hey, it was the fraud and forgery guy from the first raid. And he goes, I've been waiting for you to pop back up. He's like, he's like, you've got about 15 charges here right now, just alone. All right. He's like, you've graduated in what you're doing, and you're doing way bigger things than you were the last time I saw you. And he's like, take me to your house, give me everything you've got, and I won't charge you for any of this here. He's like, I need the things that you are working with to do what you're doing, to not get into anybody else's hands, to continue your work. And I'm like, all right, that's a good deal, man. I just want to go. I just want to go to sleep. That's all I want. And so I call my girlfriend up. I say, hey, man, we're coming up. I'm going to prison forever, and you need to get all the drugs out of the house, or get out of the house, whatever. I'm coming to give the cops all my shit, and then that's it. We get up there. I do that. The drugs are there, but they don't care. They're there for me and what I have. They don't give a fuck about anybody else. I give them there's a funny thing. I was so good at what I was doing that there were sheets of social security numbers that were blank that I had made, that they couldn't tell the difference, even from the security stuff inside. They couldn't tell. They thought I was lying, and they wanted to know where I broke in to steal those. I go to jail, and then there's a whole thing that comes up after that, right? From the sentencing to the whole, just getting involved in the criminal justice system and realizing that the prosecutors and the public defenders work together to try to put you away. I caught them doing it. And I was trying to work the system, because when I got arrested, I went and I requested all kinds of stuff from the law library about my case and about like what my rights were, and you know, what kind of action I had, and what could I do. And what I found out is that the backlog at that time for them to test the drugs was like over 60 days out. You have a right to waive your trial, right? 60 days. So they have to, if you waive your trial, they don't have to have your trial within 60 days. But if you don't waive it, they have to bring you to trial and have everything present within 60 days. I was crap shooting it, right? I was hedging my bets that you guys won't be able to get the drugs in time. Therefore, I want to have a trial. And I caught them at the very end, because the day of the trial, or a week before the trial, my public defender comes in and says, "Oh, I'm going to be on vacation that day or that week," right? Giving the prosecutor more time, because they're not paying attention to my case at this point, right? Nobody brings shit to trial. And so they weren't ready. He was giving them more time. One of the week that he was supposed to be on vacation, he calls me up and asks for my witness list. And I go, "I thought you were on vacation." He's like, "Oh, well," and I'm like, at that point I had to call my mom, and I was like, "Hey man, they're trying to give me 2 to 15 years on a first felony. And the prosecutor and the public defender are working together to try to send me away." And so she hired an attorney. She came down here and to try to get my stuff, right, from the girl, you know, my cars, everything that I had left, right? And you know, she tried to navigate that whole thing, to no avail. That I got burned on that one. They stole all my shit. But even taking the fall for these people, that was the thanks that I got, right? So yeah, she comes down. She, you know, feels like there's nothing else she can do. She hires me an attorney, and then what ends up happening is the guy that was on a ride along with this other guy, right? The fraud and forgery dude, he was a Secret Service guy. So he's federal, right? That's where the federal charges come in. He didn't, the fraud and forgery guy didn't charge me with it. This guy did. So there's the forgery, or the false information for firearm acquisition. And then there was a box of credit card numbers that I had no idea that was even in the truck. So I got charged with 30 counts of access device fraud by having somebody else's credit cards in your possession.
How did you only get 3 years?
Well, first felonies, first of all, she wanted to give me a fifth. So probation and parole, they do an assessment on you and they make a recommendation, right? So the state recommended 12 to 15 months because it was a first felony and no criminal history. The judge had it in for me, first of all, because of the trick that I pulled in the beginning, right? By being smart enough to know how to manipulate the system if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got caught there. She wasn't happy about that. So she went against that and said 15 to 60 instead of 12 to 15. So 15 to 60 months. And it was supposed to be running concurrent to my federal sentence, right? Which I was fighting that case in federal custody, and I was just over in state to do the sentencing part of this, right? So she veered away from that completely, did it in a way that where I ended up having to do it concurrently, or not concurrently, separately. And so she really did a number on me. But I mean, it's like, dude, I needed it. It's not like I didn't need it.
So let's talk about what happened in prison. What happened in prison? What did you, because here you are today, right? And and I'm just wondering, on this road that you were on, I mean, you're a miracle. I sit here and think you are a miracle. I mean, I've told you that I've worked with guys in prison, and they get out, they go back in, they get out, they go back in. You know, kids in juvenile justice, same thing. They're starting this, not all of them, but many of those adolescents will end up in the adult system, right?
Mhm.
So I want to know, what was the real turning point for you? You are not in jail anymore. You got out. I know that you got addicted to pain pills, but what was the turning point? What happened? What happened in jail?
Nothing really happened in jail. I mean, it was just there were so I was in a bigger pond, and like I said,
Yes.
I'd never been tested before, right? I was just this big guy that no one fucked with. And so when I was fighting my case, that's because I was gonna run this whole thing by myself, right? I got here by myself. I'm gonna leave by myself. I don't want to deal with none of these people. I don't have anything in common with them, right? I'm a better criminal than these folks. Because I never slammed drugs. I only smoked
You
it.
weren't a murderer, and you weren't right. The case
And
system in prison. Right.
yep. And so like I had an attitude, and there was a situation where there was some gang members, we'll call them Serenos, that's what they were. And please don't attack me for telling you something I did to your partners if you're listening to this. But we were in the yard, all right, we are doing our rec, and they're 2 yards over, the girls got let out at the same time. And so when that happens, it gets kind of chaotic, right? Because everybody wants to see you haven't seen a girl in a long time, and you want a little bit of attention, and we're all of us there are dysfunctional. So you know what I mean, you probably have women issues. And so we're all looking, trying to get, and this guy like elbows me in the face, like in the jaw. And my immediate reaction wasn't like who he was, but it was just I slapped him in the back of the head loud enough to where everybody stopped what they were doing. Like even the people on the basketball court playing basketball goes, "Grr!" And like I said, I had no idea. It was just a reaction, right? Like you hit me, I'm gonna fucking hit you back. And they call us in. I get called in because I got a lawyer call, and I go and I talk. I'm on the phone, and I'm in the front of the unit, and I'm seeing all these guys start clicking up, right? Sitting at the table, all of them. And so the INS had just brought in a bunch of people that were going to go back, get sent back to Mexico, right? And in that group was a whole bunch of these Southsiders, these Serenos, and they were just waiting there for me to be done. And all I can think of is like, holy shit, what did I do? I stepped in it again. And
Yeah,
so
because they probably wanted to kill you, right?
yeah. And so, well, at the very least, hurt me, right?
Very badly,
And
yes.
they're small, right? They're the paisas, right? They're nationals. So I mean, Mexican people generally from Mexico aren't very big people, not because of anything other than I think nourishment. You know what I mean? They're lack of nourishment, and they don't grow as big. And so as I'm walking up, 4 of them follow me, and I open the door and I leave the door open because I want them to come in. I jump in between the bunks so they can't get around me to try to like protect what I think, right? I don't know. I'm not a fighter. I don't fight a lot of people. I'm just like in my head, like where can I go to like not, you know? And so anyways, they come in and we start fighting, and I'm overpowered. And finally I just go, you know what? I drop, cover my face because I don't want them to hurt to mess my face up to where I get put in a position where I'm either gonna have to tell on somebody or get sent to solitary, right? And so I cover myself up and just let them go to town on me. Everybody can hear what's going on. Kicking me, they're kicking me in the ribs, or I'm literally just in the fetal position, covered up. And they call a lockdown, not because of anybody knows what's going on. This happened without anybody knowing except for everybody in the unit. Not the guards. So they lock us down. It's dinner time next. They don't expect me to come out, and I come right out. I look right at him as I'm walking down. I said, "That's all you got? 4 of you, and I'm still walking?" And I think, and so most of them, we were on separate tiers, right? Something ended up happening, and another group got into it, and so they locked down both tiers before anything could happen, right? The whites pulled me aside and they said, "Man, what are you?" Because I'm Mexican and I'm white, right? I look Hispanic. when I take off my hat and everything else, I look Hispanic. I look really white right now because of this damn light ring, but I'm pretty dark complected. And so no one can ever really figure out what I am. But what I know I don't want to be is I don't want to be Mexican in prison, because they're the gang members. I'm tall, I'm big. They're going to want me to be use me to do their dirty work. And so I knew this going in. And so I immediately, when I was in lockdown, I told everybody, because in the beginning of wherever you're at, it follows you, whatever you say, because you'll run across some of these people way down in the prison somewhere else. And if you say some bullshit and you get caught, that's it. You're going to get run off the yard. So I told everybody I was Italian. I was, yeah, I'm Sicilian. I'm Italian. So, because I identify with whites. I grew up in an all white neighborhood. You know what I mean? I speak like a white person, all right, or Caucasian, whatever you want to call it, right? That's just how I identify. I don't speak Spanish. I don't understand what they're saying. I make great Mexican food. That's about it. So I knew that isn't anything that I wanted. And so they came to me and they're like, what are you? And I'm like, I'm white. And they're like, you do realize that you just can't, you can't be here on your own. All right. If you want to, I mean, that's fine, but this is going to happen to you.
Over and over and over and over and over again. You have to identify with one of these gangs. Yeah. Right.
And so that's kind of where that was the first thing that, the traumatic thing that kind of happened to me, you know what I mean, in the beginning of that. But that was the only time, I think. Oh no, I got in a fight with somebody else, but that wasn't like getting jumped. I got a fight with another white guy. And it's just you're locked up with people, man, and everybody's miserable. And so it's hard, you get into it with your cellmates sometimes it comes to blows, sometimes it doesn't. In county situations, it's a lot safer. When you get into prison and you start doing it, then you got to worry about your life, depending on the level of place that you're at. I got sent to a medium, so it wasn't like a maximum. A maximum is where the rapes happen and where the stabbings and a lot of the killings happen, is in the maximum security ones. Mediums, people have graduated in the federal system. You graduate by how good you're doing to the next level below. So if you start out in a max and you do well for 10 years, then they'll let you go to a medium. You do well for another, half your sentence, and they'll move you to a low. You have to earn those.
Can I ask you something? At this point now, being in jail, do you have any aspirations or dreams? Like, do you say to yourself, when I get out of here, I'm going to do it different? Like, what's going on for you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
That hasn't entered yet.
Okay. So you're just like doing your time. That's all you're doing.
I'm doing my time, and I don't have enough time to even get into any programs there. That's the thing. I got 18 months in the state, which you touch down, you get comfortable, it's time to leave.
Right.
Then I had 18 months in the federal system. And in the federal system, if you don't, everything's a waiting list, and the people that have a lot of time get those slots.
Of course, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So you literally are just doing time. Nothing's happening. You're not going to any groups. You're not getting anything out of. There is no rehab going on whatsoever.
No, I'm just in stasis.
Okay.
And I'm getting fit. So my ego's getting even bigger, right? Because when I come out, I'm going to look amazing. And guess what? Holy shit, I'll be able to manipulate the shit out of whatever. There's no, like, I want to change anything.
Right. There is no epiphanies going on in prison.
No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen until after a whole nother set of things, right? For, getting there's this next part is really crazy, because it's like the epitome of like all that I've learned.
So this is when you get out of prison.
Yeah, I get out of prison in 2006. And then I go and I get involved in slow pitch softball. I get involved in the program, right? So before I got out in 2006, and I did 3 violations. All right. The first one I did was a 90-day inpatient treatment center that I had to live in lieu of going back to prison. All right. Because I told I had a female PO, and I put on the tears and the everything that I needed to do to sell that story, that I'm a drug addict and all of these things, right? I think that was the one. Yeah, that was the one. And I had gotten, oh no, this is how I ended up there. I had gotten arrested at a Best Buy I had learned how to make my own credit cards. I'd hooked up with somebody where I was making credit cards now, the plastic and everything else. I was encoding the back, making the real IDs, everything else. We had two offices, one where we gathered all of our information, and the other office in San Francisco was to press out all of the cards. We didn't want everything in the same location, because if one went down, then we'd still have some of the other stuff, right? We weren't at a complete loss. And so that was organized crime. All right. I knew that this was out there, right? When I came home from prison in 2006, I attempted to do good. I got involved in my union. I was an apprentice in my union. Then 2008 hit. I got laid off, right? I had all of this time, and I had money because I was getting money for unemployment, $450 a week. I'd never gotten that before. So now this is funding all my things, right? I'm not on meth yet. I go back and start going around some of the places that I know and people from my past, right? When I was in high school, I found it again. I'm married at this point because I ended up getting married to somebody I met in NA or AA, because I attempted to do the program when I got out. I met her. We ended up getting married. I'm living with her now. And then once 2008 hits, I'd already started using, and I'm hiding it at this point, right? From her, going outside, smoking, saying hi. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm doing a good job at it or not, but that's where I'm at. 2008 hits, and then I just decide to go AWOL from the marriage because I want to go be a criminal. And I want to take this new information that I've figured out, and I want to use it somewhere. And I leave, and I'm gone for like 3 months. I don't answer my phone. I get a new phone.
You just leave your wife.
I leave my life. My mom, I was living at my mom's at the time because I'd kicked out. Me and her had split up, right? So I moved into my mom's. I'm learning I'm collecting all the things that I need again, right, to get this thing rolling.
And what are you doing? What's the self-talk that you're not going to get caught again, that you're not going to go back to jail again, that you don't give a shit if you go back to jail? Like, what is going on? You don't care.
I just don't care. I've never, my consequences have never been that dire to be a deterrent. To be a deterrent, right? Because something always caught me, whether it was family, whether it was, you know what I mean? My bottoms, yeah, I've lost everything, but I've never really been homeless. You know what I mean? I might have lost everything, but I've managed to get it back, and I've got it back 3 times. So it was like nothing is hard. Does that make sense? Like, as far as like acquiring or accumulating stuff, to me, that was like simple. And so I just didn't care. It didn't bother me. And still yet, I think, because the whole thing with the daughter and that's still there, you know what I mean? Nothing's been taken care of there. And so I think.
And do you have shame? Like I'm, going back to how you're feeling about yourself at this point. And it feels like, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like maybe there's no conscious awareness of caring or not caring. Like I'm just trying to understand the mindset after being in prison for 3 years. You come out, you try to do good, you don't want to go back. Or maybe you don't care if you go back. I'm not really sure.
I don't know what that is yet.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're not, there is no awareness, right? Like you're just doing the thing. You get laid off. You want to get, you know what you know.
I'm just moving to the next thing. I'm just moving. I'm like a soldier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like water, right? Water just finds the path of least resistance and moves with it. That's what I do. It's like I bounce off of something, and it's like, all right, well, pick myself back up and move on to the next thing. Right. There's always something. I'm never satisfied with anything, even now. Right. To a fault. And so I just continue and continue and continue. I end up I get in trouble at a Best Buy doing something that I shouldn't be doing, right? I go to do I've been up for 3 days and I don't need the money. At this point, this thing that I'm doing that I've learned how to do, that I knew it was out there and that I figured it out by bringing other people in that are already doing it and bringing me into the fold, is that this is amazing, right? And I found so much comfort in identity theft because I hated myself. And if I'm being you, I don't have to be me. And there was comfort in that. And so that's where I enjoyed being. And like, I didn't even need it. Like I said, I had a pocket full of cash. I had brand new things that I'd already just stolen from other places doing the same thing. And this one, I just got greedy and made a mistake. And I ended up going to jail. Sob story with the PO. She believes me, sends me to a rehab, turn myself in, go to rehab, do okay there for a little bit, but I still got my friends in San Francisco, right? The group, you know what I mean? The whatever. So I'm talking to him because I've taken my truck. I'm able to go out on like these day passes, right? I have my truck there. They don't know that I have it there. And so it's stashed in a neighborhood nearby. And so when I leave, I act like I'm going onto the bus or going to take whatever. And I just go and cut up and get in my truck and take off and go do what I need to do. I tell them that I want to get a job. And we're probably like 2 months into it, I would say. And so my buddy has a business, right? He's at a front. And so he writes me a letter saying that he wants to hire me, and they buy it.
So now you're manipulating the counselors inside the the drug and rehab center.
Yep. And so I go so now I have a legit reason to have my car there. So I'm parking there now. And I'm leaving every day and I'm coming home. I'm gone from like 7 a.m. till like 7 p.m. And I'm high the whole day because we're doing drugs the whole time. I'm doing GHB. I'm doing crime. I'm out doing criminal behaviors while I'm in this thing for doing criminal behaviors. Right. I screw up and I get high on some GHB and I end up, because I would black out sometimes while I'm driving on GHB and I somehow don't manage to crash. And I don't know how that has happened. And it happened a whole bunch of times while I was on it. I would be like, well, we use an example of a freeway exit. Here's an exit that I know that I need to get off on. I black out and I come to 20 miles down the road. Hadn't crashed and just sort of like come to, right? This happened all the time, man, with that stuff.
So, well, I mean, so you're in rehab. You are
yeah, that's right.
now, yes, and you're
I'm screwed up, and I'm blacked out, and yes, the curfew is at 7, and by the time I come to and realize what's going on, I'm like somewhere a half an hour away, and I'm an hour and a half past curfew.
And now that, yeah.
And so I have to come up with this elaborate ass story while I'm not really there because I'm still screwed up, right? But what I do have, I know, is I have synthetic urine that I carry with me in case I have to do a random drug test, right? It's always in my pocket. And so when I get there, they immediately test me. They said, go take a test. Well, there was only a female staff member there. So a trained person wasn't there to watch me. They used a client, a male client. And so I was able to get away with it and squirted the synthetic urine in there and it passed. But they knew I was fucked up. They just couldn't prove it. They didn't test me again either. And so my PO knew that as well. So they kicked me out of that and gave me a dishonorable discharge 5 days before I was going to graduate. I ended up going home and to my mom's and not telling anybody about any of this stuff. And I think I ended up in another 90-day thing because that was another violation because I didn't finish it, right? So now I'm going to RCCC, which is a county facility jail, right, for 90 days. I get to turn myself in. And before any of this happens, like my time is limited. It's counting down. The days are coming and I got to turn myself in. Everything seems to be just like imploding around me, right? All of my bullshit has come to a head. All of the hurt that I've caused the folks around me, that I've taken no consideration of how I impact you.
No responsibility, right?
Yeah, all of this stuff.
Accountability,
Yeah,
accountability. Yeah.
accountability. All this stuff just came crashing down right around me. My girlfriend doesn't at the time. My ex-wife doesn't want to have. She's like, dude, you're full of shit. You know what I mean? I need to get away from you. You're this toxic mess. Get a, you know. And I'm trying to will. You know what I mean? I'm trying to use everything in my toolbox, right, of dysfunction to keep this from happening. I'm on a high-speed chase, chasing her down because she won't listen to me. It's traffic time in the Bay Area. And like I'm erratically driving because I've got nothing else to lose at this point. Right. And she just sees how crazy I'm being. And she pulls over and I slam right behind her, get out. And then we're yelling at each other on the side of the road. And then all of a sudden, man, it's just like I just couldn't contain it. It's right there on the side of the road. I just like nothing's working. You know what I mean? This is it, dude. This is your life. What are you gonna do? And I'm telling you, man, my hands are buried in my face and I'm bawling uncontrollably on the side of the road in a fetal position, just like when I was getting beat up. Nobody would listen to me. I was ineffective. The game was up. What are you gonna do, man? You're going to continue to be a loser and blame everybody for all your problems. You're going to continue running down this road. Like this is all these things that are happening to me on the side of the road. And people are honking, you pussy, get off your knees. All this is happening around me. Right. And it just crashed. And I went and I did my time. I turned myself in. I stopped using drugs before I went in. I stopped smoking cigarettes because I didn't want to be, I'm going to jail now. I'm going to county jail. County jail's dangerous because you got a bunch of people in there that think they know about how to do time and they're just in there trying to trying to make a name for themselves, really is what they're trying to do. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't want to be kicking drugs while I was in there. I didn't want to be coming down, you know, because I knew what it was like from before. I didn't want that. So that conviction of not wanting that allowed me to stop cold turkey. Stop smoking cold turkey, turn myself in, was just trying to think of what I need to do coming out. The light came on. Whatever it was that had been blocking me from all these years was gone. I could think. I was like, okay, when the 90 days was over, I'm like, all right, so we just need to keep this going, right? We need to keep this going. How do we need to do that? So I didn't ruin my thing with the apprenticeship program, right? So anyways, I managed not to get in trouble there. I stayed in the apprenticeship program. They allowed me to stay there.
So wait a second. How long were you in county before you got back out?
90 days. I had to do a 90 day.
90 days. Okay. All right. So 90 days, but for whatever reason, this moment on the side of the road, something broke.
My will to continue on this path that I just like, because all I could see in the rearview mirror was just destruction, like just a wake of emptiness. Like I don't build anything, you know, I don't build relationships.
In that moment, when you were at the bottom, it sounds like finally, and you broke, it doesn't sound to me like you wanted to die. It sounds to me like you wanted to live. Does that resonate at all?
I wanted to be something, and I use this all the time. And maybe it's like what you said. It's I wanted to be somebody that I could be proud of, right?
That's what I mean.
Not
Like
not not but I use
instead of pure despair, like I can't do this anymore, I want to die, there was a decision that you want to live. And I mean actually live, not run, doing all of the things, but you want to live a life with meaning.
I just wanted to figure out like how do I not do this anymore?
Right.
Right.
But I'm saying like it was, you know, we all have to make a choice at some point if we want real change. And it sounds like that was the beginning. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I knew that I knew I wasn't a sociopath, right?
Right.
Because
Yes.
I had empathy for the things that I would do bad. Like when I would hurt somebody, if I hurt, if you're a female and I hurt your feelings, or if I manipulated you in some way, and when it finally came around to where I realized what I did, I would feel bad. You know what I mean? It's like, God damn, that's a shitty thing to do. And so the empathy was always there. So I was not a sociopath by any means, but I know that I wasn't somebody that I respected. You know what I mean? And I was still doing the things, and I'd become the person who I thought that I had never seen do those things, right? I always thought that I wasn't there. But then how did I turn into him? I must have seen something. I just don't know what it was. And so there was just all of that. And like, I don't know. I just didn't want to be that anymore.
So how did you become who you are?
Well, it was a lot of work. It was having, I mean, and it wasn't easy. There was a lot of falling along the way, right?
Of
Because
course, right.
look, you take away you take away the substances, right? And which I did, at least the one that was the biggest effect on me. And I couldn't, every time I tried to do it, and I tried to do it a bunch of different ways, right? I did a lot of research, and it always ended with me screwed. So I knew I couldn't touch that, right? And so I just, I don't know. I put myself in different, like I got out of the group of people. I started playing slow pitch softball. All right. So it's a different activity, not anything near what I was doing. And that glimpse started coming out again. Right.
Mm.
Like I started thinking like, all right, well, I don't really like how they're running this league. So I want to start my own. And so I would take on these challenges, right? That I had no idea how to even accomplish. And I'd figure out how to accomplish them. And then I'd do it. And then it'd be successful. And then I would like, oh, shit, well, if I can do that, let's try this. And so the things that should have been happening when I was a kid, right? When we're children, building that confidence
Yeah.
was happening later on. And it was like this new thing, right? And I started figuring out, and it didn't stop there, so I became a tournament director. Now I started running my own tournaments, and then I sponsored my own team, and then I started, running tournaments to send that team, a co-ed team, because I got really involved in it, to Vegas every year, to sponsoring all of it to pay for it so we could all go play. And I was still a part of my union. I, got involved as a sergeant at arms, because union, it's all based on like Robert's rules of order and all that other stuff, right? And so I became a business agent. I got elected to become, not a business agent, but a executive board member, a trustee for 2 years, and then and I finally ended up running to be a business agent. But all along, I'm not dealing with me, right? And the anger and all the stuff that I hadn't dealt with. I don't just go away. It just finds other ways to come out. You know what I mean? The drugs were what was holding it down. Now there's nothing holding it down. It's just spilling out in different aspects, and I'm not dealing with it. And so I'm doing really well though. All right. I'm progressing well. Like
Are you seeing anybody? Are you seeing a therapist at this point?
Nope.
So at this point, you are still not dealing with that underlying, and I'm going to say shame too, because at this point, I'm imagining there's shame underlying that anger.
Mm-hmm,
Even if you're not saying, "Oh, I feel ashamed," it's there. It's there.
Look, there's a move, like when you're a toxic person, and you are a bully in a way, right? You use your size to get where you want. You know what I mean? I may not hit somebody, but I'll shove you. I'll do everything that I need to do short of striking you to get what I need out of you. Not now, but up to that point, right? And so there, I mean, yes, it is shameful, because there's times when you're watching a movie and you see a scene and it's like, oh, that's me. And you're looking over to see if what their reaction to that is, because that's what you do. And yes, there is shame in that, because I mean, nobody wants, especially something you're supposed to say you care about. That sucks. Like, how would you like it if that was you?
Well, I when I was a young social worker, I co-facilitated a domestic violence group. These men were mandated to come from court, and the clinical social worker who I was learning from, also male, taught me a lot about men who abuse women, and that so much of it comes from a deep, deep place of shame. Of course, now 30 years in this field, I mean, I understand that. At the time, though, it was a real revelation for me. And so that's why I'm asking you, when did you start to look below the anger?
That was after I had my youngest daughter. And so I ended up getting with at some point with my youngest daughter's mom, and same thing, you know, at some point, my, inability for whatever it is, comes out, the anger comes out, the whatever comes out. And I was in a rage one day, and I think my daughter was like a year and a half. And I was just yelling at her mom for whatever reason. And I noticed that she was behind me. And then I looked back again and she was gone. And that was enough for me to just like snap out of it. And I was like, where'd she go? And I think I knew in the back of my head where she went. You know what I mean? Because my dog always goes there up to this point. I have a dog, right? I have a beautiful charcoal lab that I've damaged because of my rage, right? Not on him, but on, like, he knows if octaves go up,
He bolts, right? Yeah.
and so I've traumatized my fucking dog that I love. It's knowing that I've done things like that to things that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, I notice that she's not there. Snaps me out of it. I go looking for her. Can't find her. She's in the furthest place from the house, and she's hiding behind the bed, curled up in the fetal position, just crying, shaking and scared. And all I can think about is, I wonder if that was you.
Wow. Gosh. And there's the glimpse. You saw yourself in your own child.
And I immediately knew that I got to stop.
Wow.
I got to stop this, because I'm just going to create another fucking problem. And this was kind of the kicker. And goes to knowing, females, because I was raised by them. She's going to fall in love with you. That's what girls do. They fall in love with their dads.
So
And I didn't want to be, and I knew if that was going to happen, then I would be starting that cycle of, if I didn't become somebody who could be a role model to her of what a real good man is supposed to be, she was going to end up with me.
I can't even begin to express the power of what you're saying right now. Is, I don't know, I use the word God. I know that holds a lot of weight for different people, but for me, that's who was in the room with you. And for you to be able to come to that realization in a moment of rage is so profound to me. That was divine intervention. But because I feel like we're always surrounded by angels and God, etc. But you became aware. You woke up in that moment when you saw yourself in your own daughter. Something happened.
Well, I mean, what happened is what didn't happen with the other one.
Right.
Like, I hadn't bonded with her. So, I mean, my behavior was inconsequential.
It doesn't matter. There's lots of people that go through life that don't wake up and see, they just continue to abuse, but you didn't. I mean, something happened in that moment when you saw your daughter.
I was continuing the cycle. I know
And
about the cycle, and everything that I was doing was ensuring that was going to happen again to the next generation.
right, but something woke you up in that moment is my point. It didn't have to.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what it is, because
What did you do after that when you sat there and realized that you had to stop this behavior, or your daughter was going to grow up and marry an abusive man? What did you do with this newfound knowledge in that moment?
well, I imagine, I'm sure I went and I tried to console her, you know what I mean?
No,
And
but
as I
no,
say
what
sorry, and
happened? Did you get help? Like, what happened?
no, I didn't get help. I knew that I needed to get out of the relationship, right? Because that was the answer. Not trying to fix anything. The answer was to
Okay.
run and get away as fast as I could so I don't hurt you or anybody else. And not really what it comes down to, because sometimes I don't know. I just snap, right? And I don't know what I can be capable of to the people around me. And so a lot of times being alone is the best place for me, because I haven't dealt with a lot of this shit.
Even
Even
still.
now, even now. even now, it's still there. I've just found a way to sort of deal with it. Yeah, I've got the podcast and, there's way more to the story. But I mean, the podcast was really, I did it for all the wrong reasons. Right. I did it I think it was like I have the right intentions, but when you have an ego and you are still like trying to figure things out, it's easy to fall into your ego controlling everything. And then
Yeah,
what
Wayne
began,
Dyer calls ego edging God out, which I love.
yeah, and it always ends up taking over. And so what started out as a right thing, and I started to see that it wasn't really to help other people. It was trying to get attention.
What are we talking about, the podcast?
Yeah, yeah. It was a way to try to get attention and, all these other things. But what ended up happening out of it was helping me more than it was doing anything else, because it's like, well, I was able to talk to people. So I'm notoriously cheap. All right. I do not want to spend money on nothing. And I definitely don't want to pay you to tell me what I probably already know, but just need to hear a soundboard. And so I used the podcast to bring on people that when I was struggling with something, I would bring on like a therapist like yourself and ask questions, right? And try
Mm-hmm.
to do that. You know what I mean? Figure it out. And then hearing other people's stories, and then it would just trigger things in me. And it just made me seem, I don't know, man. There's been a lot of growth in like realizing why I do some of the things that I do and what it's tied to. And the pot, like I started a nonprofit and all kinds of other stuff beyond this podcast. And
What's your nonprofit?
it's called Nowhere to Go But Up. And it was going to be for guys coming out of incarceration and re-entering, because I've done that. And I knew what was missing when I went to prison, because re-entry needs to start the moment you step foot in jail, not 2 weeks before you leave. You need to have a plan. And most people that go to prison that are only there between the 1 to 5 year range is not enough time. It's not a significant enough time that you've been gone that you go, oh, I'm not doing that again.
Right.
10, 15, 20 years, those guys don't reoffend most of the time. It's this smaller percentage inside within that range that I realized. And so I wanted to provide something that would help these guys. And in being a toxic person, you know, all of that is just fear.
Of course.
It's fear. And it's fear of not, like, what was I afraid of? I think I was afraid of success.
I don't know if you've ever heard of ACEs, ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences, but I encourage you to look that up if you don't know what that is. And there's a ton of research around that now of children who have had traumatic experiences. But one way that we describe what trauma feels like is you as a little boy. Let's say you've got a mom on the other side. It's a pond and it's frozen over. It's ice, and your mom beckons you to come, and you walk on the ice and you fall through. It's like the safety net of a child. It shatters. It's gone. So the next time you're asked to walk over the ice, chances are pretty good you're not going to, because you're going to be terrified. You learn at a very young age survival, what you just said, right? You need to survive. And you spend your whole life trying to do just that. And when you don't have any sense of self-worth, then you would never you would never see or aspire yourself to be someone of worth, because that's way out of your league. That's not who you are. That's not the understanding of who you are. You are a worthless little boy who started smoking weed at 9 years old when you were a child. So when you call yourself toxic, some of these things that you've used to describe yourself, what I hear in your story is your incredible strength, your courage, and your resiliency. That's what I hear in this story. and where you are right now, and the courage that it even to talk about where you are right now, that I'm still, that you still have these things. We are all a work in progress, but what you have done, the odds of what you've created with a nonprofit, a podcast, you sharing your story so generously with all of these people who will listen and take different pieces that can help them in, I'm going to cry, in wherever they are in their own journey. You know, all of us at some point in our life question our own sense of self-worth. I think we all shoot way lower than we're capable of. And it's these stories that people are willing to share and talk about that's real. It's the authentic parts of who we are. We're trying to figure it out. We are spiritual beings in these human bodies, and we're here to grow. That's what we're here to do. That is our purpose. And I just, I feel like this story has touched me so deeply, it's going to take me a while. I'm going to have to sit with it because I think that you're incredible. I feel so honored that you've shared this story with me. I mean that like wholeheartedly, and what you're doing with your life as a result. And when you said that you started this to help yourself, that is what most of us do. And then in the giving, the receiving that we get can be overwhelming sometimes. When my brother died, I went and got my certification to run bereavement groups to save myself from the grief I was in. And what do you think happened?
It helped you
It healed
process
me.
your own thing.
Exactly. It's the giving and receiving. I've got this acronym, GROW, to give and receive openly and willingly. That is how we grow.
Yeah.
So I need to bring this to a close, even though I
Yeah,
don't
I
want
know, I know
to.
it.
And I want to ask you, what does self-love mean to you? What does it mean to you?
I don't know yet. I'm not there. I don't know how to love people yet because I haven't figured out how to love myself yet. This is something that was brought to me recently. So I never give myself credit for anything, even if I do shit amazingly, right? And I always find something wrong with it or a reason why it's not good enough, or this. And some of it is just analysis, right? You do something and the outcome isn't what you want, and so you're like, all right, well, this, I need to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But I never really sit with the fact that I did it. I mean, you did it. Yeah, it didn't come out quite the way you wanted to, but I mean, you took the risk and did it, and now it's done, and it's somewhat successful. And I do that all the time. And I was told that, you know, you treat yourself horribly. You are so hard on yourself. You don't ever take credit for anything. You don't give yourself credit for anything. And as a result, you project that impossible level to reach to everyone around you. And no one can ever reach that level because your expectations of yourself are so high that you expect that of everyone else around you too. And we're never going to get there. You're never going to get there, probably. What is it going to take for you to just be content? I don't know. Haven't figured it out yet. But I do understand. And so for me, when my own behavior gets modeled back to me through somebody else, like I used to be a road rager, right? Real bad. And I stopped doing it because I'd seen in my rear view mirror 2 cars behind me, 2 guys get out and start fighting. And I'm like, what a bunch of dumbasses. And then I'm like going, ooh, ooh, that's you. You just haven't gotten there yet. You stay in the car. You haven't gotten out of the car yet, but that's you. That is you. That's what you look like. And when I see it like that, when I see my own behavior that's horrible modeled back to me, that's when I go, oh shit. And I stop. And it's just this is the way it's been. So I no longer do that anymore. A, because it's really dangerous. And B, right now, that's, as somebody who commutes all the time when I was working, you see the level of stress in society play out on the roads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I have to
we
ask
need
you,
to go.
where can people find you?
The easiest place to find the podcast right now is probably my link tree, linktr.ee /nowhere to go but up. Otherwise, you can type in Sean Dustin, and anything that I've been on or a part of comes up. You can type in the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast on Google, and I'm all over the place. So easy to find.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on the show. I know the story is going to stay with me. And
Thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to Sean's 3-part story. Again, just a reminder, this is running 3 consecutive weeks. So make sure that you start from the beginning with episode 1. Thank you and see you all next week.